The killer hops from one body to another and is ultimately the casualty of a TV remote control device. But because of the extreme violence and some questionable scenes involving a little girl invaded by the spirit of the killer, I can only give Shocker a marginal thumbs up. I enjoyed it, but with some reservations.
I can't give it a thumbs up, Gene. I felt it would have been a better movie if it had played with more rules. I wanted to know exactly how it was that this guy got out of the electric chair and into the electrical system so that he could come out of the television set and zap you. And I wanted to find out why it was that the remote control device controlled him. I didn't understand that. And I feel that in a movie like this, if anything could happen, then you don't really care what happens. The movie was all over the map, including, incidentally, a very confusing performance by Michael Murphy as the kid's father. Now, Murphy's a great actor. He was in An Unmarried Woman 10 years ago. It's a movie since then, for that matter. But here, they keep sending you signals about this character that are never followed through on. He's hostile at one moment. He doesn't understand the next moment.
You know why he's hostile at one moment?
Why?
Because his spirit has been invaded by the killer.
Well, I figured that out. Thanks a lot. Yeah,
okay.
I got that one. But I'm talking about the rest of the time.
Well, I mean, the guy is doubting, it's an adoptive situation. He's doubting the kid's veracity when he's claiming that he can spot the killer. The kid is threatening to solve a case that the guy can't solve himself. I think that's all explainable. As for the business of how he becomes an electrical conduit, that's shown by the fact that, well, I mean, he gets jolted with all the juice. He's, in effect, praying to the spirit of the television set, which I thought was fabulous. The television set is something evil. I think that's great. I always enjoy that kind of story. I liked it. Oh,
I'm going to turn on my VCR and record your explanation, making sense of how this guy becomes an electrical current, because you've explained it now, and now I understand it.
Good.
It all makes sense now.
Good. Are you serious?
No, I'm not exactly.
Why not?
I mean, because I think that they have to set up at least some kind of pseudoscientific explanation of it.
They did set up a very pseudo.
Okay, he's electrocuted.
It's a horror film.
And he goes into the electrical wire. Is that what happened? And then he prays to the TV set, and that's how
he prays to the TV. You saw him in the jail cell.
That's right. He prays to the TV set, and the TV set rescues him from the electric chair. I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah.
Coming up next.
I'm sure this is going to really please Diane Ladd. She's the best thing in the movie, more interesting than the dinosaurs, just what an actress wants to hear. Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park is coming out next month, and it's going to feature high-tech dinosaurs. It's going to be interesting to see, however, whether he has any humans as enjoyable as Diane Ladd's character in Carnosaur. So a marginal thumbs up for me.
Well, a thumbs down for me, Gene, although I did enjoy Diane Ladd's kind of mad intensity. She has that sort of way of zeroing in on her lines as if everything in the entire future of mankind depends upon what she's doing here.
I think she's one of the craziest characters that we've ever seen in a movie. I mean, this woman is, I mean, she's really way out there. The easiest thing would be, we always get it, the villain is always someone who wants to destroy the world. She's got a very specific plan. She hates people. And she loves dinosaurs and thinks they should be in charge. I mean, that's fabulously loony.
Well, I liked all of that. I agree with you that dinosaurs aren't too good, and it doesn't help that they shoot them all at night, which I think is a technique to cover up the fact that they're not really very high tech. I think Spielberg's going to have higher tech dinosaurs. I also felt that the plot got a little murky when all of the women started to give birth to dinosaurs and everybody broke out in a fever and so forth. I was not quite sure exactly what the master plan was there.
The master plan is, she's thought this through very carefully. She wants to impregnate all the women with dinosaur eggs and destroy the women so they'll die in childbirth, thus eliminating the ability of the human race to keep conceiving.
Well, that explains one of the key lines in the movie, which is half of the species will be exterminated. And then I'm thinking quickly and thinking, and then another generation, the other half will go because there won't be anybody to give birth to them. So
the movie makes real good sense.
That up. Okay.
The special effects of people turning into werewolves are quite spectacular and quite gross, and I think they use them maybe once too often. But the best part of the howling for me is the general level of tension that the film develops. I got scared. The movie drew me into its world of werewolves, and at the same time, I admired the filmmaking. This movie even made the shadows of werewolves on the wall come alive. It's aggressive, it's gross, it's entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, you know, I agree and I disagree. I agree that it's a superior horror film, and I think that people who like horror films and like werewolves are likely to like this one more than I did. You know, we've talked on previous shows about things like eroticism, humor, and fright. You can't fake them. Either you feel them when you're watching the movie or you don't. I have to admit I was not scared by this film, and so for that reason, I don't recommend it.
But didn't you enjoy the idea of being, didn't you enjoy your time in the theater while you were watching it?
I love the guys turning into werewolves, even though it went on and on a little bit too much. I enjoy that. I like some of the backstage humor involving the television newscast.
It's a lot more witty than the average horror film. And when you call it a superior horror film, that's your phrase, right back to you. I think you're right.
I'm giving it a mixed negative review. In other words, I didn't quite like it, but somebody else might. How's that? It's right on the
Somebody
borderline.
else might. Me.
Somebody else was you. Okay, congratulations. You get a free ticket.
I
for
got
next
the
week.
right one.
Okay,
All
fine.
right. Tense, bloody violence and dismemberment. But I enjoyed it within that context and give it thumbs up.
I'm not giving it a thumbs up, although I share your delight that it's not another teeny bopper movie.
Right.
I mean, getting so tired, really, of teenage vampires. But on the other hand, this intriguing idea, which is that the church has given up on holy water and crucifixes and priests and prayer and just hires mercenaries now to winch these guys out into the sunlight and machine gun them and watch them go up in flames. That could have, I think, been dealt with a little bit more instead of just being the window dressing in a movie that is essentially just a shooting gallery in which you get, one scene after another of vampires and their hunters being hacked to pieces, shot, and dismembered and so forth.
In interesting ways. For example, we haven't seen self-immolation lately. I don't think this year, have we? When they get out in the daylight.
Is this a job for adults? Two of us deciding, how long has it been since we've seen self-immolation in the movies? They all look like they have Roman candles in their pockets.
Somebody did a little research, I guess, and they found some new gimmicks, and it works. Plus, you've got James Woods spouting off.
Well,
he jacks up this picture so that it never lags.
I'm not giving a thumbs up. I'll concede that it could be considered in some circles as a guilty pleasure.
Oh, he's getting close to agreeing with me. That means in 2 years you'll come around to my opinion.
We will see in 2 years. Okay.
Later, there's a terrific blood test where they try and check out who is human, who is not. I wish this movie were less ugly than it is, because in terms of storytelling and suspense, and that subtext of suspicion of one's fellow man, this is actually a very well-made movie. But at regular intervals, no doubt about it, it does gross one out. So, a mixed review for the thing from me. I'm going to recommend it, but serve notice that a lot of people who see it will be made sick by it.
I think that's probably an understatement. I would call this the barf bag movie of July. I have some problems with it. One of them is, I think, the characters. They're not made into three-dimensional people. Their function is to walk down the corridor and be jumped on. The other thing is plausibility. Once they figure out that this thing can turn into one of them, they ought to institute a watertight buddy system, but instead they have all kinds of loopholes. People walk out into the snow, come back with a grin on their face, so that the story is totally implausible, and the movie just basically is an excuse for this very gruesome and repellent creature to gross us out. It is the most nauseating thing I've ever seen on a movie screen, I think.
That's quite a statement.
I think I'll stand behind it.
I think that the movie for me, though, isn't about those characters as individual people. I think that's why they can be interchangeable. I think that it's about how a society, this little group here, wants to poison, they think something's going wrong. You're not in the group, you're out. Just that line, move away to one side, is a very chilling thing. And I think if you read the movie in that way, then the implausibilities at your level mean very little. And so you sit there wishing, and I do wish, that it were a lot cleaner.
Well, I think, Gene, though, that I've got news for you, and that is that 99% of the people who go to see this movie are there to see the monsters, and very few of them are going to read it as your kind of allegory of McCarthyism.
That we will see. That shot of the two women facing him, when that shot comes up, we feel scared. He's scared even more than us. What I like about this script is that it doesn't cheat too much. Douglas does some logical things. I've been in so many thrillers where people don't do the right thing. I'm screaming, call the police, call the police. Well, he does call the police. In fact, he does tell his wife what's going on. And still, Glenn Close keeps bugging him, pushing him, pushing him. This makes Fatal Attraction, really, if you think about it, into a monster movie. But instead of a mad slasher with a hockey mask chopping up teenagers like in Friday the 13th, here we've got a fine actress chasing a fine actor, and Ann Archer is no slouch as the wife. Except for a little bit of a hokey ending, I liked Fatal Attraction.
Well, you say a little bit of a hokey ending. I say the last half hour. And unfortunately, up until the last half hour, I was thinking in my mind Oscar material.
Yeah.
Because the movie is so psychologically convincing.
Yes.
It is absolutely, in terms of its dialogue, in terms of the character development, in terms of those performances.
Played real.
It had me right on line with it. And then I felt, at the end, I felt betrayed and I felt cheated, because that last half hour, Gene, come on. Now, I don't want to give away the ending, but you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
It's got a Friday the 13th ending. It's got the scene where the monster isn't really dead. It's got that ridiculous, I won't give away too much, that ridiculous sequence involving the roller coaster and the traffic accident. Come on, it's like in the last half hour, they totally lost their nerve and just turned it into a Hollywood formula horror movie. And I give it thumbs down because they didn't have the guts to stick with how good it was and how much better they could have made it.
And I think you're being too severe. In the course of the movies that we see, there is so much good in this film, I say it's good. We're seeing.
Well, but
I would not
So if a friend asked me to see it, I'd say see it, but be prepared to be disappointed.
Well, I'd tell a friend, okay, that's great. Okay, then I would agree with that. See it, but be prepared to be disappointed.
At the
In fact,
end.
if you can leave after an hour and 20 minutes, you'll think you walked out of a great movie. I'm tempted to say I like this movie because we learned so much about drywall construction in it, but never mind. That kid has so many tricks up his sleeve as he outsmarts those adults that they ought to call this movie Funeral Home Alone. I didn't much like The People Under the Stairs, but then movies about houses of terror with cannibals in the basement are not exactly my favorite genre. But nevertheless, I do want to give Wes Craven credit here for making a movie that does create a distinctive visual world that employs some mordant humor and is even politically correct, since the hero and his family are about to be evicted by those ghoulish people who are slumlords. It has qualities in it that I admire, even though I didn't think the film quite worked.
Well, you know what? This picture I found exciting, repellent, particularly where there's the guys running around in leather harness because of the S&M relationship between him, and there's another sequence where he threatens their little girl in the house that I thought, at least they didn't get explicit, but I thought, you know, if he had cut that out, I'm still recommending the picture, because if you like this kind of picture, he does it as well as you can imagine.
Yes, it's true. At least it's not another mad slasher movie.
This one is there is some wild humor here, and if you like the pictures. God, the one with all the zombies walking around.
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the
Night
Dead.
of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead. This has the same kind of style as this picture. I think it's very good. I read one review by another critic, Dave Kerr, in the Chicago Tribune, who said that it's a Reaganomic film because they look like Reagan and Nancy. They look like Reagan and Nancy as the killers, and they have got all the working class people oppressed in the basement. And I thought that was a fabulous review, and I like the picture more because of that.
And to think that I didn't review it on the basis of the drywall construction, isn't that amazing? I missed that whole political element.
Corny? Well, a little, but I got involved in it. I was never bored by scanners, and I think I know why. This movie turns out to be a very complicated little thriller that actually convinces us that scanners could exist. In other words, it's not just a cheap shocker where all we notice are the special effects. Instead, in Scanners, we buy the premise and we follow the story. I think it's a good little thriller.
It's a good little thriller. I never bought the premise, and I never really bought the story either. I don't think there are really scanners, and so I don't think it's plausible. I know that the movie was directed by somebody that horror film fans think is a real young genius, David Cronenberg, who also directed They Came From Within and The Brood. I think we've seen both of those films. I don't know. I admired his craft in this film. I thought he did a good job of directing it, but I never got involved in the people. I never thought of it as their story. So I was just watching actors going through this business, and then you get they're thinking real hard at each other, and heads are exploding, and I'm thinking, oddly enough, I can admire the technique, but I don't care.
Well, I got involved in the story, as I mentioned, and I got involved for three reasons. One, I do believe, or like to believe, and I enjoy believing that scanners exist. I like the idea that people could burrow into each other's brains. Two, I like the idea that it would be used, and I think it is plausible, that intelligence communities would experiment and use scanners to attack other people.
That I believe.
And three, I love one of the big payoff scenes at the end where this guy does battle with a computer. I love the idea that a human being's brain can be more powerful than a computer. I think it is, and I love the idea that that's the battle in the movie. So I got involved.
Well, it is also neat the way Cronenberg takes just ordinary props, like when the guy attacks the computer, he does it over the telephone, and all you really see is a telephone, but in your mind, all of these amazing things are happening. So, a lot of craft in it anyway, but I still vote no. You vote yes. Okay.
Really splits into two parts, the writer's fantasies and these bug creatures. I can't exactly recommend it, but I'm glad I saw it.
You know, in a long time of reviewing movies, I've rarely seen a movie that leaves me more at a loss for words.
Well, I had that reaction. I tried to come up with
I admire what Cronenberg and Weller and Davis have done here.
Right.
It's a very good job. It is a brilliant job. It is one of the most unpleasant movies I've ever seen, and I hated most of it. I was repelled by William Burroughs, this low-talking guy with a monotone who tries to kind of keep a straight face while he realizes that he's totally hallucinating on everything in his life. Even his wife reappears to him. I hated the, as you so delicately put it, the talking bug buttocks. This was not my favorite image of the year. There are many other images in this movie that are so unsavory and so disgusting and so vile and so deliberately so.
I'm at a loss. I can't deny the artistry and talent of the movie, and I can't say that I liked it at all. I was really
well, let me push you,
pushed
though.
away by it.
But that's the same review you gave to The Last Boy Scout, and you gave that thumbs up. So what are you giving this?
There's a lot of difference. We could do a whole show on the difference between these two films.
No.
I guess I have to vote thumbs down, but at the same time with a footnote that I admire what he did, and I hate it.
Okay. Strange.
Species is a very bad movie, and one of the ways you know that is that in a science fiction movie with any brains, the alien doesn't spend most of her time taking off her bra. The team that chases the monster is an ungainly unit, including a professional killer, played by Michael Madsen, and a psychic, played by Forrest Whitaker. By the end of the movie, they're all slogging around in a sewer with the monster. In fact, the movie is just like the alien. It starts out looking good and ends up by getting its kicks by having things jump at us off of the screen.
Well, I enjoyed the picture, Roger.
You did?
I sure did. I enjoyed Natasha Henstridge taking
I'm
off
sure
her
you
bra.
did, yes.
Absolutely,
Okay.
I did. That's one of the reasons I go to the movies, and I also go for some thrills, and I thought that this team, all different support troops with all their different specialties, including Forrest Whitaker, who has the empathy, and the other guys who have the science and all that. I think they were a great crack
And
team.
Michael Madsen, who's got his gun and he's going to shoot the alien
And
when
all
he
of
sees it.
I
Yeah.
thought it was a lot of fun, except at the end, it does run us around in a water pit, and that to me was kind of boring. But up until that point, I thought this was high energy and a lot of fun.
Does it ever occur to you that a movie like this could occasionally be made with a little intelligence, and so a creature that's capable of sending messages across light years of space might not turn into a giant exploding sponge when it gets to Earth?
Hey,
How would
Roger,
that be?
well, they made a good one. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is that kind
It was a lot better movie, yeah.
Yes, oh, yes, it is. But this is a lot of
what
fun.
this creature does is basically it turns into something that jumps at you from behind things in order to give manufactured thrills.
They've been doing it for 80 years in the movies. Sometimes it's done well.
Tired
and
of it
this one they did very well.
Time ago.
Okay. Starship Troopers, based on Robert A. Heinlein's novel, is a dazzling-looking film, to be sure. The satire, I think, is broad, and I was bored only by some of the banal byplay between the young cast members. The result, a pretty good popcorn-eating picture, repetitive, but fun.
Too repetitive for me, and I have to give it thumbs down. I enjoyed the satire at the beginning,
Yes,
but
I did
then
too.
at the end, and it's a movie that lasts more than 2 hours,
That's why I said
you
repetitive.
get a lot of shots of bugs being blown up. And these bugs, once you master what they look like and what they can do, are pretty boring because they don't have very many resources. They're not real interesting movie aliens like the character, for example, in the movie Alien. And you'd think that sooner or later the troopers would figure out that it's inefficient to try to kill them with machine gun bullets when all it takes is a grenade and you could blow them right up real good.
I may have been intimidated by the sheer artistry. I'm talking about the technical computer artistry of them, because when I saw the masses of them running, I thought of Jurassic Park, frankly, and how exciting it was to see those creatures, which had more personality, to be sure. But the satire constantly throughout it, I enjoyed having exposed the kick of killing, and I thought that was what this director Verhoeven put into the story.
It just goes on and on and on.
It does go on,
and
it could have been cut by 20 minutes.
Easily. Okay, coming. That's Dennis Hopper as the bad guy there. Blue Velvet is a movie that really challenges you to think about your reactions to it. And my reaction is, I think this movie is cruelly unfair to its actors. It was directed by David Lynch, the same man who made Eraserhead and Dune, and he's a talented director. You can see that here, and seems to have a lot of power. But he asked Isabella Rossellini in this movie to be undressed and humiliated on the screen, as few actresses ever have been, certainly in non-porno roles. And then he tries to take the edge off her shocking scenes by turning the whole thing into some kind of a joke. Well, either this material is funny, in which case you don't take advantage of your stars, or it isn't funny, in which case it shouldn't have so much campy and adolescent dialogue along with the really powerful sexual scenes. Sure, the movie's well made, but the more I thought about it, the less I liked it.
Well, I liked it, and I thought about it a lot, and I think you may be on the wrong tack in trying to feel sorry for Isabella Rossellini, because after all, she consented to do what she did on the screen, number one. Number two, I'm sure she's walking around wherever she lives, New York City or whatever, and survived the whole experience, just like Janet Leigh survived the shower scene in Psycho. So I don't think that that's pertinent. I think what's exciting about the film, and it is challenging, is it starts out with flowers and sunlight, and it's a happy little town, and then we dig deeper and we find out it's a nasty town, or at least a couple of people are nasty. And I sat there, and this did for me, and I use the Psycho example again, this did for me what Psycho did as a lot younger, which is eyes open and, oh my God, we're really getting in over our heads. And that's an experience which is challenging, shocking, but mesmerizing, and I like the picture.
Well, first of all, I don't think I'm on the wrong tack with Isabella Rossellini. In the first place, the movie was shot in 2 halves, so she had no idea, making her part of the movie, that all of the stuff outdoors and in the daylight was going to be smarmy and campy and funny with all kinds of in-jokes. And secondly, it seems to me that we can't divorce our reactions. It's not how Isabella Rossellini reacts to the fact that she's standing there nude and humiliated on the lawn of the police captain's house with lots of people watching. It's how I react. And that's painful to me to see a woman treated like that, and I want to know that if I'm feeling that pain, it's for a reason that the movie has other than simply to cause pain to her.
Well, I think that the reason is that the film is a thriller and a shocker. I mean, there are people that get hurt badly in real life, and I think that this is a legitimate one. This is not a simple mad slasher
Okay, then
movie.
why is it a comedy?
Because he wants to set you up. He's a director, and he wants to play you like all the directors, the great directors want to do. He wants to play you like a piano, which is have you smile and then swing you right into some depression.
Yeah, well, the next time that somebody wants to play me like a piano, he'd better get some music that's worth listening to.
I think this is a good song.